this. Hopefully I'm going to do this.
We got this.
Yeah, it's not letting me click go live. After you go live. What did I do wrong? Okay. Opening soft. Ah, there we go. All right, so we are live. And now, ooh, that was fun. I feel like I should know better. Um,
Don't ask me anything. I really am so technologically stupid.
no. All right, so we got a couple people joining there. We got a couple people joining here. Like I said, I'm going to have 3 different stream, 2 different places. All right, everybody logging in now. This is my first night, just to introduce this idea. This is my very first night using the Restream app. So this is a second attempt, and as beautiful as it is, I'm here with my friend. I'm fixing something over here. Sam, this is also the second time that we've tried to go live, so it makes perfect sense.
Second time's a charm.
Yes. Well, with you, every time's a charm. So,
Oh,
Sam,
stop it.
you know it's awesome. DIY Huntress, the first question I always like to ask, what's your origin story?
Oh, I love being like, this is my villain origin story. My origin story. Okay, so where do I begin? Well, I'll start with where I got into like DIY woodworking. My dad was a carpenter. My grandpa was a carpenter. I would go to job sites with him as a teenager. That was my job in the summer, was like help him do carpentry work. And I continued that as a kind of like a side hustle in college to help pay for things like, I didn't want to eat ramen noodle all the time. So it was really nice to have some like extra change. And I started a little woodworking business selling custom signs, mostly out of like reclaimed wood. And then very shortly after that, I started a blog to teach people how to kind of do what I was doing, how to get comfortable with power tools. That was back in like 2012, and it just like kind of escalated into this thing. It was a side hustle for a while. I worked as a school psychologist for about 6 years, and then now I'm doing this full time. And I took the leap 2.5-ish years ago, and it was a really great decision. And I'm having a blast with it, and it's been awesome.
All right, well, that's the show. Thank you all for tuning in. No, uh, so so
Gotcha.
this surprises me. So you started a blog,
Mhm.
and I've never heard this. I've talked to you about a bunch of stuff, and first I didn't know it was 2012, but
So
with the
long ago,
blog,
I feel like.
yeah. So first of all, where was the blog? Like, was it hosted somewhere? Was it just like this? I'm just writing it into the ether.
I mean, I opened a WordPress. Oh no, I opened a Blogger account. It was
Okay.
like DIYHuntress at blogger.com. And I don't know, I legitimately didn't think like anyone would actually follow it. It was more of kind of like journaling my projects and still doing step by step. So if anybody wanted to learn or if anybody found it, they could. I really just thought like my mom would look at it and nobody else. Um, and then I started sharing those blog posts to Facebook because at the time, like Facebook business pages were kind of just like up and coming.
Right.
Um, and it just like took off. I don't like it really just took off. And then at the same time, like Instagram had kind of just started around that time too. So then I started posting the stuff I was posting to my blog and Facebook to Instagram as well. And like that was like the end of the story for me there. Like Instagram really opened up a lot of doors for me, because that was just kind of where I built my community and like where I found people that wanted to learn, and it was really cool.
So basically, you've been on Instagram since the beginning.
Yeah, like it's funny when I say that. Like it's almost like when I tell people that I was around when like dial-up internet first came out to like households, and then I feel really old being like, yeah, I was around when Instagram started.
Hey, listen, I went to college. I had a word processor, a brother word processor that I carried as a suitcase, and you carried it in. And we didn't have internet. If you wanted to use a internet computer, you had to go to the computer lab, and that was the
I love it.
only place you were getting that type of stuff.
I love that.
Okay, this just amazes me. So when did you really first you started growing on there? How big did you get at the beginning? Like what was your growth like? I'm just curious. Again, this has nothing to do with anything. I'm just curious for myself what the growth was like.
I mean, it was really different, right? Like there the way that the algorithm works back then was so different. First of all, it was only pictures. There was no carousels. Like it was just like a
Right,
straight photo.
right.
Um, which in a sense like was kind of nice because it really forced me to kind of get a little creative about how I was sharing my journey as like my side hustle while I went to college. And it really was like a different time of reading captions and not
Yeah,
just
yeah,
having this like quick video and scrolling. It was like you had to read a caption to get to know somebody and to get to be part of their inner workings and like
right.
their world. And so it was a lot slower paced, and I felt like I just grew this really awesome community. And I still feel like this community
Yeah,
has like stuck with me since then, which is great too, and has just helped me grow even more. But I wasn't none of my growth has ever been fast growth. Like I've been doing this now for over a decade, and it's never felt like explosive growth. It's felt very healthy in the sense of like very slow and steady. And I love that because it gives me a chance to like get to know all the people who are giving their time and their energy back to me. And it never feels like for me, like I never have this feeling of like abandonment in a sense on social media. It's like anything I post, I feel very loved and supported, and like that's just a testament, I think, to that slow and steady growth of me getting to know
yeah,
people and
yeah.
people getting to know me. Yeah,
And it's also the time like you'll get that that comment from somebody who'd be like, "I haven't heard from you in forever." It's great, you
yeah.
know. Yeah, those people
I
who
still get
comment.
like comments from people who are like, "Oh my god, I remember when you did this thing like back like 10 years ago. I still remember this project." And I'm like, that's like unreal. Like to me, I love that though. Like I love that there's still people that are here who were following me when like all of my blog posts were really crappy and like all of my videos were really crappy and they're just like watching the growth with me.
So tell me about then going to YouTube. You're getting big on Instagram. You're doing the posts, and then obviously YouTube starts getting bigger.
Yeah. So at some point in this journey, videos started getting introduced to Instagram and YouTube started becoming like very big. And I remember a lot of people being like, "Hey, we love your tutorials. When are you going to put them on YouTube?" And I was like, "Mm-mm, scares the crap out of me. I'm not doing it. I'm never going to be on YouTube." And then I got had enough people who were asking for it that I very jokingly was like, "Okay, you guys want YouTube? If I reach 10,000 followers on Instagram, I'll start a YouTube channel." Literally thinking like that would not happen. Like I thought I was buying myself some time here, but my community like rallied. Like people were sharing the post, being like, "Follow DIY Huntress so she could start a YouTube channel." And literally within posting that, I would say within a week I hit 10,000, and I was like, "Oh, I'm eating my words." Like that was a bad idea.
Time to
And
do some work.
I just so I did it. So I started a YouTube video. My first video I put out was like a pallet wood initial letter with like a jigsaw and whatever. And it was great. And then like, some of like the greatest like April Wilkerson reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I heard you're starting a YouTube channel. Like if you need anything, let me know." And I was like, "Oh my God, April Wilkerson." Like it was and now like her and I are real life friends. And it's just, it was really nice the support that I had behind starting my channel. But I will say it scared the crap out of me. I posted one video that year and then I was like, "I'm good on this. This is a lot. I don't know." And then it got back to people being like, "We loved it. Where's more?" And then I think like year two, I posted two videos. Year three, I maybe posted five videos. And now, I think I started YouTube in 2017, maybe, or I think
Okay.
was my first video. But now I'm posting like every other week.
Yeah, yeah. That's insane. I mean, first it just amazes me how long you've been doing this. I do just for everybody on Instagram. Somebody said that your video is fantastic. Mine is terrible, so I'm sorry. Apparently, I have bad Wi-Fi in my shop. But I like doing it in the shop. And I can read comments from Instagram. So if anybody
Yeah,
wants to
I
say
can't
them,
see any comments. So like say
yeah.
embarrassing things and make him have to say them out loud. That would be great.
Wow, that hurts. That hurts. Um, all right, so I love this. Now we were talking earlier about passive income, which is always helpful. Do you sell plans for any of your stuff?
Yeah, so I do. So I've really been trying to be better at this because, this is something I talk to when people start to ask me about content and like how to make money off of what we do. Um, it's really important, honestly, to have like all these multiple forms of income. So for me, like I didn't quit my full-time job until I literally had eight different forms of income coming in. And plans are like a big part of that actually, because any project that I put out now on YouTube, that is like a really like a tried and true woodworking project or like a furniture build, like there's a plan that goes along with that. And I mean, I actually just got my year in review for like the amount of plans that were downloaded last year, and there was like one plan alone that was downloaded like 1,300 times, and that's like $15 a piece. So like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? That's great, you know. So that's just one of my
Yeah.
plans. So plan sales are really great. So anybody who's like looking for some passive income, you put the time in once, and yes, it's like it takes a lot to make the plans and you have to keep up with them. And sometimes we make mistakes. Like I'm human, there are mistakes. And I have people reach out and be like, I think this measurement's wrong. And then I fix it and send out new ones to everyone. But putting that time and effort into something once that repeatedly is a gain is just like very smart.
That's that. So I've been really lucky with the one set of plans that I put so much time into. I did my cabinet, the folding table cabinet.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember that.
so I spent about 30 hours making one of them and taking pictures, and then I spent another like 35, probably 45 hours making the plans, and it wound up being 58 pages long. I mean, it was intense. And I'm still selling right now, not a bunch, but I've been selling them for the last year, and that to me is always amazing. You go, wow, I did that, and people are buying
100%.
it. Yeah,
And it's helpful, like, you know, it just breaks it down in a different way. Like I'm a very visual learner. I think a lot of us creatives are. And for me to be able to like print something out and tangibly have it in front of me is just it's great. Like I'm working on a camper van conversion right now, and it's requiring a lot of parts to be installed that I have never worked with before. And I am literally going online for every single thing and physically printing out manuals to every single thing I'm buying, because having the physical manual that I can like flip pages, like, okay, I did this step, what's next? And have it in front of me is just so helpful. So, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way, which is why I think plans do so well.
I'm 100% the same way. Like, and I have to admit it, and maybe this is us being old. I hate trying to read them online and like, or a PDF where you turn the page or you don't quite. I don't know. Just it
I
irritates me.
know. I'm with you on that. I'm a pen and paper girl. Like even like I have a paper planner still. I love like pen and paper. I jot down things on notepads. I have notepads in like every room of my house. So when I have a thought, it just goes right on the notepad. I yeah.
Well, okay, so let's go into that. I that's one of the questions I wanted to talk about. You have a lot of great plans and you have a lot of great ideas. So, number one, obviously, is where do you get the ideas? The second part is how do you plan them? So, let's go with first, where do you come up with your ideas? Like,
I would say like 90% of the things that I'm building are out of pure necessity, whether it's for me or for somebody else. Um, So, for instance, like here's a great example. I renovated my basement last year. We waterproof like it had flooded a couple years ago in like this freak storm. We waterproofed it. I fully renovated it, and it's kind of been sitting for a year. And now that it's done, and I'm finding that we're moving things down here, like there's so many things I need to build to make this a functioning space, right? So like I want to build custom bookshelves down here. I want to build a custom sliding door for my utility room. I want to build out a closet, you know? So there are all these little things that I know that I'm like, I need these things. So I'm going to schedule them in. And then I'm also going to like, my goal is always to show people like these things are approachable, right? So in the terms of then turning that into content, I'm always trying to make it as approachable as possible, because the big projects can seem very daunting or very intimidating, and I don't want them to. Like for me, I'm very lucky. I had my dad and my grandfather. My grandfather's a master carpenter. Like I had them teach me a lot of things, and I recognize that there are a lot of people who want to do what we do but don't have that person in their life. And so if I can try to be that person, even if I'm online and I'm not physically there, and make the thing I'm doing feel approachable, then like that's where the content concept comes from for me.
I love that. I think that's, I mean, first of all, I learned everything from trying it out and failing and trying it out again, and then looking online and being, oh, so and so does it this way, and
Yeah,
finding
and
that.
there's always more than one way to do it, which is the best part.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's what's really important, and I I feel like I strive to say this. You have to find the way that's best for you.
Yeah.
Um, it's never going to be what's best. The only way is not the. That's not what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
Yes, I
So,
got
okay.
you.
So now you got your plan, you got your idea, right? Especially with your van. How are you planning it out? So you said paper and pencil. You going back, taking all the measurements?
Yeah, so the way that I'll plan out a project mostly is like I'll have the idea, I'll know what I want to do with it, I'll take all the measurements of the space that I'm working in, and then I'm typically trying to like I like I said, I'm very pen and paper. I'll like rough sketch something out and be like, okay, this is kind of what I want it to look like. Here's the dimensions. And then I'll build that thing. And then after I'm done building, I will go back into like a 3D modeling program and like actually model it out once it's done. For me, that's just how my
Yeah,
brain works. I know some people like to do it the opposite way where they'll 3D model it first and then build it. For me, I just find, especially with a lot of the home renovation stuff, you just run into things that you like don't
yeah,
expect. You know, walls are never straight, even when you've built them. Like floors are never level. Sometimes you think you're gonna do something spacing wise, and you gotta change it up because like that vase you want to put on the shelf doesn't fit. Like, you know, so
yeah.
for me, like I'd rather kind of doodle out what that general idea and those measurements are gonna look like, make it work with whatever constraints or limitations are actually in the real world, and then go back and once I know it works, then like finalize that in a 3D model.
So I like doing the same thing in terms of paper and pencil for most of my stuff. Whenever I do like I did my kitchen, I did a big set of built-ins. I had to have those modeled for me beforehand because it was just too much work trying to figure out exactly how much wood I needed,
It's
what
fair,
were the
yeah.
lengths. Yeah, like that for whenever I do stuff like that, I feel like I need to have it modeled out. But I don't have the skill to model it. I don't know how to do that yet. And that's one of the things I have to work on. Um, oh God, there was something. Oh, here's the weirdest thing that ever happened in terms of a build, and you'll appreciate this. So, what 3D model program? Oh, before we get there, Omar asked, "What 3D model program do you use?"
I use SketchUp. I really like SketchUp a lot. For a while, I was using the free version, but once you start kind of selling the plans, you definitely have to upgrade to the pro. But it's great. And there is obviously a learning curve, as with everything. But now they've changed a couple of things, and they actually on their website have video tutorials for how to do things.
Okay.
So helpful. You know, like to be able to just kind of walk through those and do like sample projects, but it's great. And then you can literally screen grab or 2D export whatever you're working on in steps to then put into plans that you can make a PDF.
I might have to try it again because the last time I tried it, it was too much. I could not get it to do what I wanted to do. So the built-in one of the biggest pieces I ever did. This was the craziest thing to me. It was a newer build. I made a set of built-ins that was on the outside, on the inside, but outside wall of the house. These people had a pool put in like within a month after I put this in, and it was the trucks and excavators all came around that outside wall, and they called me about 6 months later, and they said the piece has moved. You could see where it started, and it's moved back.
Well,
Their the
the
whole
vibration of all the
wall,
machinery.
yeah, and there was no way. Like it's one of those things you can't plan for.
Yep.
Thankfully, everything was okay, but that was the weirdest thing in the world to me to go and see this pulled back and scared me. I was like,
Well,
I don't
that's
know what to tell
exactly
you.
it. Like, I mean, like my house was built in 1950. It's consistently shifting and moving and
Yeah,
doing all these
yeah,
things. And like when I built out this basement, it's funny because I'm sharing a project this weekend that I just did in the basement. But I found I found myself getting so annoyed because like I know for a fact when we built out, like I framed out this basement with my dad, like things were plumb, things were great,
yeah.
things were like, but it's been sitting for a year. Like I haven't done anything in this space for a year, and then I'm cutting trim, and I'm like, oh my god, are you kidding me? Like, why is this not level anymore? It's just houses move and breathe, and wood moves and breathes, and like no matter what you're like, if you're, especially if you're buying construction material, like you don't
Yeah,
know if it's fully dry, so sometimes it can warp over time. So like just you just don't know what you're going to
right.
be like working with.
That is frustrating. Okay, so coming back to all of this, I'm just curious again, what was the first thing that you remember building?
Oh, it was horrible. I built the first thing I remember building for my blog is, well, backtrack. With my dad when I was 15, the first thing I remember him having me do actually was the thing he didn't want to do, he was like, I don't want to do this, so this is on you. And he made me do trim work. So my entry into carpentry was like trim and molding work and like
Okay.
working with millwork. So that was me. Like the miter saw is still to this day my favorite tool because it's what I learned. From there, I went to tiling. It was all the things he didn't want to do, molding, tiling. He was like, yeah, you got it, do it, it's fine. So that was with my dad. For my own woodworking business, like I said, I made these like wooden signs out of reclaimed wood. And it was back when I was working in the summers out in Montauk doing like service industry and bartending and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was making signs for all the restaurants out there. And they said like kitschy things like gone fishing or bar, or it was like the name of, one of the beaches out there. And it was cute. And they were all like loving it. And the first one I actually made was, my husband is a musician, and I made him one that said support local music, and he stuck it in his guitar case at a gig at a restaurant. And the restaurant owner saw it and was like, where did you get that? I want a whole bunch for the restaurant.
That's
And just by seeing the sign, like I was busy for years with that. I sold so many signs, and they're still all hanging up out there. It's so fun to see. Like
that's
whenever we're out there, it's just fun to see them like hanging out at the restaurants or at friends'
yeah,
houses. It's just like a fun little, like, I'm part of the town
yeah.
forever in a sense. Like it's really cool.
Evan says hi, and Omar said that your dad is very smart. I can't argue
Hi,
with that.
Evan and Omar. Yes, he is. You're right. But you know what? The funny thing is now he works for me sometimes. So like it's just it just comes around.
Yeah, I love. First of all, I love when your dad works with you, but I can just see you being like, Dad, go do the trim work.
Mhm. I can't tell you how many times like, you know what? I don't I'm gonna go do this thing. You can do the trim.
So, I mean, come on, you can't beat that. I wish I can't get my kids to do that. So, uh,
For me, like I didn't know better. I was like, oh, I'm just here to learn.
yeah.
Like teach me whatever. And like that's what he taught me. So
If I Okay, that was the dumbest comment I ever read. Um, and so I don't know if you can see the comments on here. Um, anyway, on this was from YouTube. It was very weird. Okay, so tell me about your dad working with you at uh, Total Boat, because that was cool as heck too.
oh, so fun. So we thought it would be fun to do. Him and I are very competitive, like fun competitive. It's just something that we love to do. Like it'll be even like as stupid as like who could finish framing their side of this project first, or like whoever can get like more of this done buys the other one pizza. Like it's just it makes it fun for us. So we thought it might be fun to basically do like a build off and see like who could build the same thing better, which was so fun because the only rule was like we had to build a coffee table. Like that was it. There were no other rules. We had to build a coffee table. And so we each sourced our own slabs for it. We each like came up with our own design for it. So that was fun because then we went to Total Boat, which they're amazing, and they have a shop, and then they also have like every epoxy resin product and every little art product that we needed to get things done. So we went there for a couple days, and we had a divider between us, and we each built a table, and then at the end it was like a surprise, and we had everybody on YouTube and Instagram vote for their favorite one. So it was so much fun. He had a blast. He was actually wearing his Total Boat hat yesterday when I saw him, which I think is adorable. But yeah, it was really cool. It was a cool experience for both of us, and I would totally do it again.
As a dad, I can say that that would be absolutely amazing to see your child causing this to happen. I
It was
just
cool.
yeah, I'm jealous of that. I mean, not just of you guys getting to go to Total Boat and do that, but of working together to have fun and create that. So,
Yeah.
all right. So now we're gonna take a step back again because I want to come back into this whole thing. You said whenever you back to your origin story and everything else. Now you're gonna go full time, right? You
Mhm.
said you wanted to have 8 different streams
Yeah.
of revenue coming in. So, do you mind me asking what are the 8 streams that you were, what
Yeah.
streams of
So,
revenue do you have with this?
okay. So there are sponsorships,
Uh-huh.
plan sales, affiliate marketing sales. Commissions were one as kind of like a backup. I don't take them very often, but occasionally once in a while, like I'll do it. There's ad revenue from YouTube, ad revenue from my blog. At the time, there were Reels bonuses. I know that's kind of like not
Yeah.
your whatever. Facebook ads was one, and I
Okay.
think that's it. There might have been one more, but yeah. So that's kind of like the. Did I say sponsorships?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
Okay,
mean, but
well, yeah.
that makes sense. Like those streams. Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of I always tell people like don't put all your eggs in one basket. There are so many different places to put your content as a content creator. And there are so many different platforms now too that creators can apply for opportunities, whether it's affiliate opportunities or whether it's like pure sponsorship opportunities where you're working directly with a brand for product placement. I think, right, like content creation too for me has definitely also it's just I've realized more and more like it really is part of marketing now, and especially if you find a company or a product that really aligns with what you do organically, and it's like mutually beneficial, right? So like I started with a lot of free products, but then now it's a lot of paid product, or a paid
Yeah, yeah.
promotion for said product. And for me, like I had gotten to a point with that where I was like, okay, I feel like that alone right now could help me take that leap. But it is nice to have like the other seven backups just in case I have a month where that doesn't work out.
Right. Have you had let's go with dry months, dry time that you're like, I don't know if this is right.
I feel like every January I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I just think like the post holiday there's
Yeah.
like a post-holiday lull, especially in marketing, that I think a lot of not just content creators, I think a lot of business owners in
Yeah.
January, they're like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm going to make it this year because the numbers are so low. And then all of a sudden, like come mid-February into March, you're like, oh, well, now I'm super busy. And like, I thought this wouldn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's true of everything, right? Well, I'm glad
Yeah.
to hear that. Like, I mean, that's I think, a lot of people talk about it as well, I don't know how long I can survive. And we've seen the companies that don't. There was a guy here, um, really nice guy. He opened his own brick and mortar store, and I loved it. And I was very excited. Went there, celebrated the opening with him, and within 6 months they had closed down. And the one of the main reasons was because he had opened a brick and mortar store where they had to be there. You have to be in the store. He didn't have a workshop there, so now you're splitting yourself too much, and it was just too hard for him. And
It's
I
also
always,
overhead too. Like when you're opening a brick and mortar, like you have to think about the overhead as well, right? Because then you're paying for a space and you're paying to fill that space, and yeah, it's definitely something like it's something that I've considered, right? Like my shop is in my backyard basically,
yeah.
like it's in my garage, like my commute's very easy, but there are definitely times where I'm like, oh, I wish I had more space, or I wish I had like an area to actually hang out and get work done. And I've looked into those options, but then it always comes back to like, yeah, it's the overhead's hard when you're a business owner.
Well, and it's funny because the best way I think to put it for you is he moved into, I don't know if I would say our version of Soho, but it was the
Mhm.
more expensive area. So which all of that also brings us into this next component that I want to talk about, and that's your shop. Because again, I haven't seen it in person. Your shop is just gorgeous. I love the
Thank
layout.
you.
It is YouTube, like it's not YouTube itself, but it's YouTube worthy. It's one of those.
You can say that, and that's a really big compliment. I'll tell you why. Because my goal with this shop was to not just make it feel like a workshop, but to also kind of make it feel like a studio space.
Yeah.
Um, like I wanted to find a way to marry those two things together into one and a half car garage, which was like challenging. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie. Like there are definitely still days that I'm like, man, I wish I could fit this piece of equipment I really want in here, but I physically cannot, right? And so like it has its challenges, but it's been great. And it's really nice to have like this cool tool all in the back now and be able to use that as my backdrop for my videos when I'm like talking to the camera. Um, it's really nice now to have these like big open ceilings that I refuse to insulate or cover up. And I know that that's not great in the winter, but it's fine. It just is so worth it. But that was a labor of love because I really thought that project would maybe take me a month. And then turns out that as I was opening the walls, that there was a lot of water damage and black mold, and I ended up having to rip the entire thing down to the studs.
Oh wow.
And we were actually like really only kept like one original wall in the garage and had to like rebuild it back up. So it ended up taking basically like a year to fully get it to where it is now.
and you still didn't insulate the roof.
I will not. It's so nice. Have you seen that roof? It's so nice.
It is. I love it. Like, again, that's one of the things. I mean, I hate if you look at here's behind me. There's my ceiling. I hate it. Like if I could, I would definitely upgrade and try and make it look better. I love that space. Um, so obviously insulation. I again, I don't know how you go without it, but in New York, man, I'm freezing. As a matter of fact, I got a
It's
heater
so cold.
behind.
These winds here are
Yeah,
not like unreal right now. I literally like we have 50-mile-per-hour wind
yeah,
gusts the past couple days. It is knocking things over. It is crazy. It feels like I think it was like the real feel today was 4 degrees. No, thank
yeah.
you.
I'm sitting here. Hey, Van Stray, my guy. I'm sitting here with my heater beside me, and I'm putting my hand on top of it. So,
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm not
so
in my shop right now. We're just in my house.
I should be. So, with that build, one of the big things to me, sorry, one of my friends, Brent, he says insulation is a sore subject for me, Newman. I've been to his shop. His
Well, to be
Onefinity,
fair, the rest of my shop is insulated. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong. Like everything else is insulated. It's just the ceiling. And part of it, I think part of it's because when I had to tear the garage down, I was actually able to still keep the original roof. And for
okay,
me, like it's symbolic in a sense of because
yeah,
the person who built this house, like he built that and it was his workshop. Like he left his tools behind. Like all of the tools on my wall in my backdrop in my shop were his tools. So like
oh, that's
and I
so cool.
found them in the ceiling basically. He had a loft. So for me,
Yeah,
like it was very symbolic for me to keep that ceiling because it's just a reminder to me of like this is this is the original part. Like this was somebody else's shop when it was
yeah.
built in 1950 and like now I get to inherit that and make it my own and I have this tool. Like it's just yeah, so I don't want to cover it up. There's just
No,
I don't
no,
know.
I
Every
get it.
time I'm in there it makes me happy.
I think that's honestly, I think it's super cool. I love it. And again, I love the tool wall anyway. So now
Thanks.
that you've built out this whole area and you've been in there for a little while,
Mhm.
what are some things that you did that you really like? What are some things that you did in there that you're unhappy with? In my thought with this is anybody listening, hey, if you're thinking about building out something, here's something to think about.
The thing I'm the happiest that I did because it's something I've wanted since I started woodworking out of an 8x10 shed is build a nice outfeed table
Yeah.
because I don't have to work on the floor anymore. And now if I'm, loading heavy stuff in from the driveway, I can literally back my truck into the garage and just slide it onto the outfeed table basically. So that's something I'm really happy that I did. Um, I think the only thing I would say I wish I did differently was while all the walls were open and I had some help from like my electrician, I wish I ran some extra power to the garage because I'm definitely running into kind of like a power issue in there when it comes to like dust collection and running the table saw at the same time. Um, so I'd say that's if you're thinking of doing a shop, like any sort of garage to shop conversion, like definitely think about the electric before you close up the walls because it'll make life a lot easier. I'm probably gonna have to run some extra power to the garage at some point in the next couple of years, but that's probably the only thing that I regret not doing sooner.
So the one thing I did, and again, my shop is it's construction grade. Let's say that. That's a good way to put it. My shop is construction grade. What I did when I ran electric here is I put OSB on all the walls and I screwed them
Smart.
in. But I did my electric. I actually ran it on the outside of the wall because I knew then that I would see where it was. If I wanted to
Mhm.
screw something in the wall, I didn't have to worry about it. But I also knew that if I needed to move it, I could move it. You
Totally.
know?
Yeah, that's smart. For me, it's like everything is all drywalled and pretty, and there
Yeah.
are custom cabinets everywhere. And I'd have to like move some stuff to cut some holes. And I'm like, I'm just not going to deal with that. Like, I'm just enjoying that the space is done after a year of working on it, but
Yeah.
I'm just not caring about that right now.
It's nothing big that you need to worry about. It's just
Yeah, exactly.
all right. So you're in your space. And you're creating content. What I want to know is how has your content creation changed since since you started on YouTube? Like how have you changed your approach? How have you changed what you're making?
It's funny you say that because I recently, just for craps, decided to watch my last video. I mean, my first video ever, because I've been changing some things up lately and I've been trying some new things. And the amount of uncomfortable I look in my first video is so funny. It's like deer in headlights. Um, and I really encourage anybody to watch it and then watch my most recent video and see how vastly different they are, because I think sometimes people who are especially starting on YouTube feel like it needs to be absolutely perfect to get started. And it doesn't. Like, I personally feel like my content is always changing and growing. It's never the same. And I love that, because I just feel like as a creator, I like experimenting with different ways of doing things. But I'm definitely more comfortable talking to the camera now. That's for sure. I do a lot more like vlog style, kind of let me take you with me and see this through my eyes and why this doesn't work type content, or why it does work type
Yeah,
content,
yeah.
which I would have never done when I started my channel. And the other thing that's changed is it was very stagnant in the sense of like I'd put my camera super close to my hands, I would do this thing, and then I would complete it, and then the next step I'd move my camera and do this thing. And now if I'm doing a step in a video, you're probably seeing 3 or 4 different cuts of me doing it close, then maybe far, then like another close up. So I've learned to be a little more dynamic, or a lot more dynamic, with how I'm shooting the content and just making it a little more interesting. Like, I didn't know what B-roll was when I did my first video. I had no idea. I was like, I don't know what that is. And now I'm like taking B-roll and making sure that I'm getting like the wide angle, but also the close one, but also moving it to the right and to the left, so that we're getting those like fast cuts that keep people's attention. And
Yeah.
so it's always a work in progress. But yeah, like that's the biggest difference between my first video and what I'm doing now.
How many different cameras do you have?
I only have one really. Well, that's a lie. Okay, so I have one like mirrorless camera that I shoot with mostly. But what I will do is I really I need to like keep things compartmentalized. So like I will shoot all my vertical content on my phone at the same time that I'm shooting with my camera, because I kind of like to keep them completely separate. I don't like
Yeah.
to try to figure out how to crop things later.
Yeah.
So that's typically what I'm doing. But with the van build, I did get myself a GoPro,
Okay.
because there's a lot of on the roof action that I frankly was really scared to put my investment camera that I waited for 12 years to buy on the roof of a van. I didn't want it to like fall or anything. So I did invest in a GoPro for that, that I'm able to kind of just like stick and mount wherever I need to. So for the van build, there will be 2 camera point of views.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So talk
Yeah.
about this van build. What's the inspiration with that?
Oh man, I'm so excited. I've been thinking about this for so long. So, couple things. First is that my passion project, like the thing I'd love to build at some point in my life, is a tiny home. It is top of the list of like my dream projects that I want to do. Obviously I don't have the means to do that right now, so this is kind of the next best thing. But
Yeah.
we travel a lot, especially in like spring, summer, early fall, because my husband does like pro level cycling. And so we travel to different states for all these different events. And 2 years ago we rescued a puppy, and his breed isn't allowed in certain hotels in certain states. So we were just finding it really hard to find places to stay that also weren't like super expensive. And so I was like, this is dumb. We should just make our own place to take with us. And originally I was going to convert an RV. And then the more that I was working on the RV and demoing it, I was like, this thing is humongous. Like, this is so stupid. It's just like, it just doesn't make sense for us. We're not going to use it the way that it probably deserves to be used. I think doing a camper van is probably way better. And so that's what I'm doing. So I'm converting a Ford Transit van high roof into a basically studio apartment, tiny home on wheels. And I have finished doing all of the exterior work. And now I'm going to be starting on the interior, which is really exciting.
So was it new?
No, it's a 2020. Um, they're still really expensive. I had to finance it because I was like, well, I can't afford to pay for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's a 2020, but it's like just new enough to have the bells and whistles. Like I
Yeah,
can start it from my phone and do some checks from my phone. And,
that's
it
nice.
has like the certain things that you need for assistant. Like it's a
Yeah,
great van. And I think I bought it with like 40,000 miles on it.
that's nothing.
Um, Which right, exactly. And I haven't even really driven it this year that much, like a couple times here and there to bring like I've been using it as like an actual work van this year because it's empty. That won't be happening anymore after I put the floor in a couple weeks. But it's just like it's a great van. I really like it. And we'll see how I feel about it when I have to run electrical and plumbing, but
Well,
for
that's what
now
I
it's
was
been
going
a
to
fun
ask.
project.
I was going to ask what the plans are. First, Roman builds it, says, great interview. Sam is the best. So awesome to hear how she got started. She was so helpful with giving me tips on my closet build this week.
Yeah,
Roman,
hey neighbor.
that's awesome.
Another
And
Long
that's,
Island maker.
well, that's a great thing. Sam is rocking it, David. I mean, that's a great thing about you is that you are so approachable, and I appreciate that as well. But before we continue to sing your praises, I want to know what the plans are for the inside of this. Like you talk about running plumbing, so I'm assuming you're gonna have a shower
Oh yeah. I'm telling you, I want this thing to be a full
apartment.
studio apartment. So the plans are there's gonna be obviously a bed in the back, and then under the bed we're gonna do pull out bike storage.
Okay.
So it's gonna kind of function as like an actual garage under the bed. And then I'm also putting a shower in there with they make these like it sounds so gross to say, but they're really smart. They make these toilets that are like vacuum seal toilets, and
Yeah,
so we're getting one of those. And then I'm also putting a kitchenette in there, so there'll be a sink, a cooktop, and a refrigerator, and then we'll have spots for storage. I am so there's talk about 3D modeling. There's something called van space where you can 3D model out what you want your van to look like. And so I've been kind of playing around with different layouts of what I want this thing to actually look like. So I'm still teetering on like, do we need a actual proper seating area, or is it something since we only travel in the spring and summer we can do outside? So I'm still figuring that out. But I think that once the floor is down, I can kind of start doing my sketching and like taping
yeah,
things out and seeing how much space we have left, and then I'll figure out the full layout. But it's exciting that I'm at that point. Like I've been that's the part I'm excited about. The exterior
right.
stuff scares the crap out of me because I'm like, what if I install an AC unit and it flies off the top of the van type deal? But like it won't and it's fine. But
Wait. I want to see the window unit. I want to see like the house window unit sticking out the back, and as you're driving, it's
well, yeah, I had kind of like a maiden voyage with it because I'm getting the wheels kind of upgraded to all terrain wheels because sometimes we might
yeah,
have to stay at campgrounds. I don't want to ever
yeah,
get into a situation where we're stuck. So um I installed these like flares on the side. They're like basically bump outs that you put windows in, and it gives you about like an extra foot of space to sleep, so you can fit like a full size mattress in there. And that was the one that I was like, I hope I installed these right because we're gonna be driving, and I don't want these things flying off the van on the highway. But we were great. It was great. There's no leaking. They didn't fly off the van. Like, woo, we're good.
yeah. That's what you have to worry more about. Is the like the rain we had at Maker Camp. You're
Oh
sleeping
my
there, and all of
god.
a sudden it starts coming in.
Yeah, no, that would be a nightmare. Maker Camp. I'm gonna bring it to Maker Camp this year. Like that's my
Well,
goal.
well, I mean, I can understand. I'm thinking about it with the wheels. The fact that you're going to be going to these bike races. I was going to say tournaments, but races and everything. I can imagine that you're going to need to be able to have really good traction getting in and out of some of those places. So that
Yeah,
makes
because some of the places like you're literally just parking on grass or you're parking on gravel or you're going up like a hill and it's all gravel and dirt, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
I just that to me was something that was really important to get taken care of before I start doing the inside because once I do the inside, it's gonna be for me a lot harder to like get that thing to a shop to do these big exterior projects for.
yeah. That's exciting. That's awesome. So
I'm excited.
I don't know. Did you ever decide you're just putting this on the DIY Huntress page? You didn't make a DIY Vantress?
Vantress. I don't even know how that started. I love that. Um, so yeah, so I basically I was gonna do like a DIY van life channel for this and do a separate channel. And then the more I was talking to people about it, the more people were like, no, just put it on your regular channel. And I was like, I don't know if anyone's gonna want to see that. So I put a poll out. Actually, I think it's on Instagram too. It was also mostly on YouTube, just kind of putting feelers out and being like, should I do a separate channel for this or should I just put this here? And overwhelmingly, it was like 97 or 98% of the people that answered were like, no, it should stay on this channel. Please don't make a second channel.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm gonna do. It's not like it's not going to be a consecutive thing in the sense of like I'm not just going to stop doing DIY projects and put out 10 van videos in a row. It's going
Right.
to really honestly be a go with the flow. Like as I'm building this thing out, I'm going to publish videos. Um because that's just how I do things anyway. Like I
Right.
can't plan that far ahead in advance. Like once the project's done, it goes on YouTube. Like that's just how my brain works. I need to just cross off the list and move on. So there will be van videos on Instagram, like the DIY Huntress Instagram and the DIY Huntress YouTube channel, and they're kind of just gonna come out as they're done. So like once the wheels are upgraded on the van, like I'm gonna start getting my first two van videos out, which the first one is just kind of like planning how I planned it, why I chose things the way I did, demo, and then the second video is like all of the exterior work in one video.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, I think the majority of people who follow you, and I'm thinking of myself and people we know, they're going to be more interested in seeing how and what you're doing on the inside than the outside.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think part of me, the way that I want to do this is I don't necessarily think that every part of this build needs its own video, mostly just because I'm also still learning how to do all
Yeah,
this. Like, I'm no expert in this. Like, I'm just kind of taking you along and showing you all of the things that I've learned and the things that go into something like this in case anybody's ever interested. Um, so for me, they're going to be big chunks of video. So like, right, all the exterior work is going to be one video. Like the flooring, the framing for the floor, laying down the floor, the insulation, the framing for the walls, and the insulation for the walls. Like that's all one video, right? The plumbing and electric are going to be one video. So I'm sharing these in more than bite-sized chunks in a sense because I just personally feel like I would not, if I were someone who watched my channel, I don't know if I would
yeah,
want everything to be its own separate thing. I
yeah,
just think it's more fun to see it over time and
yeah.
then hopefully you want to come back and see more, you know?
So how is I don't know about this. How is doing the inside of the van similar to and different from like building out your basement? What's the similarity? How are you framing out the walls there?
Yeah, I think the major difference really is that you're working with a metal shell, right? So I'm working with the same materials I would use in a house. I mean, I'm not really doing two by fours because it's very heavy and cumbersome for a van.
Right.
It's kind of overkill at that point. You don't need those things. But in the sense of, how I'm attaching things, you're working with a metal shell. So there are options here. There's riv nuts are an option that a lot of people use, especially for anything structural like a bed or hanging cabinets on the wall. There are self-tapping metal screws, which people just kind of use in case you're not putting anything super heavy on the walls. Yeah, they
It's
kind
not
of just
going
go.
through the wall, right? I mean, that's what I
No, so the inside of the van has these like ribs. It's like basically a rib cage for the
yeah,
inside of the van.
right.
And in addition to the ribs, there are all these kind of like tiny compartments along the sides of the van
Okay.
as well that are hollow.
All right.
So you're never actually drilling into the sheet metal unless you're really putting stuff in the roof, to be quite honest. That's about the
Right.
only time that you're gonna fully drill into the actual like through the sheet metal. But when you're doing the interior, it's kind of all just going to those hollow cavities that are all along the wall.
I mean, I have experience working on a motor. I've taken off a fender, but I've never worked on the inside of a van where I had to take stuff off like that.
Uh, but same.
Right. So
Right.
to me, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, well, what are you attaching it to? Well, that makes a lot
Yeah.
more sense.
So yeah, it's going along all the ribs, but really honestly, like once that part is done, the rest of it is being built the way that you would work in a house. Like I'm building custom cabinetry,
Yeah.
I'm running plumbing through the walls and the framing, like I'm running electric wires through the walls and the framing. Um, I'm laying down like I'm laying down a floor the way I would lay down a floor in my house, right? So once you get past the I'm working on a van part of like drilling or
Yeah.
cutting
Yeah.
into sheet metal and cutting into like the metal or drilling into the metal, then the rest of it is just like working on a house.
That's so cool. You know what I got
Yeah.
to do is I'm going to have to figure out a way that you can use one of my cabinets in there because that would be cool. You could have a table and a cabinet. Come on.
I know. I thought about this too. I was like, what are like that is the fun part for me with this, and I think this is why I'm so excited to like be past the exterior part and start to move on
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
interior, because I when I started my brand, it was a lot of small space solutions, a lot of multi-purpose solutions. Like I when I first started my brand, I was living in a 325 square foot studio apartment in New York, right? So like everything had double meaning. Like my coffee table I made also was storage. My, there were things in the closet that I did that could store clothes, but other things as well. So there, I'm always, my brain just
yeah.
naturally thinks that way of what is a way that I can make something that can be used in more than one way. And this van build is like no different.
That's awesome. Well, that's the fun part of it is figuring out all those things.
Yeah, it is fun. And that's why I'm excited. Like, this to me is kind of like a passion project. I'm working with a couple of different sponsors, but the sponsors I'm working with for the van are very laid back, which is exactly what I need for this project, because they are so cool and so helpful and just like so enthusiastic about me embarking on this van journey. And that to me takes the stress off of it in a sense,
Yeah.
because yes, it's still part of what I'm doing in a business perspective, but this is a passion project, and I feel like I don't do enough of those every year. And now this is a big one that's going to be dragged out for a few months that I don't have a
Right.
choice but to take my time with. And I'm very excited to, in a sense, like document my excitement about this so I can go back and watch it in a couple years and be like, look how happy this passion project made you. Like, do more of that.
Oh, that took me two different ways. I had two things I want to talk about. All right. So let's when you find yourself losing some creativity, some inspiration, what do you do? How do you keep yourself inspired to keep making things?
Yeah, I mean that
Besides,
happened to me. That happened to me this year. Like I was very open and candid about it on social media, but I went through about like a 3.5 month block this year where I just felt very lost in a sense. Like I was, I attributed like the beginning of it to burnout, but it was so much more than that. It was like there was burnout, but then there was like guilt that I wasn't putting new content out, and then there was also guilt that I was just like not doing anything in general, and then there was added guilt on that because I'm like, well, this is my livelihood, and if I'm not doing things, I'm not making money, but I'm not in a mental space to do that. Like it really was a really tough couple of months where I was just kind of spiraling, and there was a lot of self-doubt. And I found that like I am the first person to admit that I do not take time off. Like I work 7 days a week. And part of that is like I love what I do. And but the problem with that sometimes is when you don't get the time to rest and reset, like it just does cause this level of burnout that sometimes is hard to come back from quickly. But what I will say is the things that really helped me get through that period of time where I just wasn't feeling like myself or feeling very motivated was going back to the things that I forgot made me happy in a sense. So like sitting down at night and opening my little thing I have of acrylic paints and taking a piece of scrap wood and just like painting, aimlessly painting, no agenda. Or walking into my workshop, recognizing it's a disaster because my workshop is a direct reflection of how my brain feels, and just taking like three things and putting them away and then closing the door and focusing on it another day. So it's really like about, for me, like baby steps
yeah,
of doing these small productive things where you can take a moment and be like, man, I've not been myself for 3 months, but today I did these three things I really feel like I needed to do, and that felt good. And then recognizing that, and then eventually, like, that continues to build. And the next day, you put four tools away. And then the next day, you put five tools away. And the next day, like, you put six tools away and you finish that painting, right? So I just think we live in a culture of like hustling, and everyone has to hustle
yeah,
and be on and be performing. And like how many times have, I know I'm not alone, like how many times have you scrolled through social media and you see all these people achieving all these amazing things, and you're like, well, I just sat on my couch for 3 months like in a
yeah,
funk, and
yeah,
they're doing all these cool things, like wow, right? And so being aware that when your brain starts to go there, taking that beat and being present and having those small things that you're grateful for every day, or those small things that you're proud of yourself for achieving, until you start to get to a point where you're back at it. And yes, it took me 3.5 months this year, but I'll tell you, I am back at it. Like my brain is on overdrive, and I attribute that in a way to taking those 3 months off, or 3.5 months off in a sense,
yeah,
because now it's kind of like my backlog of all the things that I remembered I wanted to do are coming back, and I cannot wait to do them because I'm in a better place.
I love that. So, two things. One, it's draining, and hustle isn't always healthy. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
hustle culture. You look at it, you're like, you feel like you're always hustling, and I'm the same way. Like I'm always working. I'm always going, and that is really hard. I love the small steps to get back, especially the cleaning up of the shop. I mean, even if it's three things at a time, but for me, just getting the shop cleaned up often helps me reset and figure out
Yeah.
where I am. Um, so I want to make this statement because sometimes Instagram cuts me off at exactly an hour. For anybody for everybody watching, grind set mindset. Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
Next week, Pat Lapp is going to be on. We're going to
Oh,
talk about
I
small
love
shops.
Pat.
No, come on, you cannot come up with a nicer guy.
I love
Uh, he's
him.
he's awesome. So he's going to come on next week. Well, so Pat is next week. 2 weeks after that, I'm not quite sure, but then the week after that is Graz, and I didn't want to do Pat and then Graz,
Yeah,
so I was like,
girl. You got a good
well,
lineup.
yeah, well, I like to have fun. I like to talk to different people about stuff. So, um, I do want to talk about the other thing I want to talk about with you. There were so many different things we can do with the grind set mindset and coming back from it, but really important. Hey, you were at the Capital One building drinking a cup of coffee
Yeah.
in an ad for them.
That was fun.
That was amazing, and I really want to. We've talked about this a couple of times when you talked about your streams of money coming in. How do you get something like that?
Honestly, I know this is such a frustrating response, but I have no idea. Like they reached out to me. So I don't know. This has happened to me a couple of times with a couple of different uh sponsors who are outside of our normal realm of sponsorship. Like
Yeah,
Ford was a huge one too, where like I don't know where they found me, but they found me and I love working with them. It's
right.
been amazing. And it's been like I'm on year 2 of working with them. But yeah, I think like my best advice is just put yourself out there. Like put yourself out there, be yourself, do your thing, like do it organically you and like the right people and the right opportunities I really feel like will come and find you when you're just like being you.
I love that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the best way to put it. Really is. I uh, I had Tim Hortons reach out to me
Oh,
a couple
take the
like
coffee and run.
2 years ago, a year and a half ago, sometime I don't know. They were doing something. They reached out to me. I was like, Tim Hortons, what the? And I had to go through. It was one of those where you're like, all right, I need to double check. Is this real?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, and it was a legit thing. But then they decided to go a different way, and I was sad. I was sad.
I gotta say though, like I know, like I'm probably so annoying with how much I express my gratitude to people, but the truth of the matter is, like, I really feel like I wouldn't get these opportunities if it wasn't for my community and like everyone rallying and being so enthusiastic about whatever it is I'm doing, even if it's crazy. And so, like, really, when I think about it, it's just community is everything, and then you can't put a price on that, right? And so like when you do the thing you love and you do it authentically and you're doing it in a way that you really feel like it's giving back somehow and you build a community around that, like that alone is just a recipe for bringing in the right opportunities.
When you talk about building community, now I've talked to people who said, yeah, I don't on YouTube, oh no, I'll respond to comments the first day and then I don't respond to anything else. How often do you respond? Like, do you talk to everybody?
For a while there, I was responding to everyone for a long time, but I will say I've gotten to a point, fortunately and unfortunately, where it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah,
So I try my best, like especially within the first day of content, to really be present and engage. My DMs are a black hole, so like I always feel bad if someone DMs and I don't see it. It's not personal, like I just sometimes cannot keep up.
yeah.
But I really try my best um, to just like respond to as many people as I can. Like relationship building is so important to me. I love connecting
Yeah.
with other human beings. Like that's something it just I don't know. I love it. I'm a person person.
Well, that's the counselor, the school counselor part of you as well.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, do you feel like any part of that comes over to your content creation?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, I also always say, like, if it wasn't for that, I don't think I'd have this, in the sense of like, I went on this journey for 9 years to get my PhD, and throughout that entire time, like, DIY Huntress was a constant and a side hustle for me that helped me get through that. And so I don't think I would have ever started this brand if it wasn't for me going through that process in college, to be quite honest.
Right.
Um, so I think like a lot of that led me here. But yeah, I mean, that my psychology brain and my psychology side will always just be a huge part of me, whether or not I'm actively practicing. And I just think it helps me look at the world a little differently. Like when I get that hate comment, I'm not immediately mad or hurt or offended. It makes me think about the person who left that comment and why they left it. And it just gives me like different perspective a little bit on some of those interactions, which I think is nice to have. It doesn't excuse the rude behavior, but it definitely gives me, I definitely have this part of my brain that immediately reflects on it before I get upset about it.
Right.
And so there's that. And I also just think that like it has taught me to not be afraid to share the hard moments too, and to share what it's like to be human. I think so many times we look at social media and we see these snippets and we're only seeing highlights of people's lives or projects or whatever it is they're going through. And for me, like, I recognize, having that part of me, that that's just not reality. And so that's why I'm very open and vulnerable and I share these things publicly. And I don't know, I just encourage more people to do that. It can be scary, like, don't get me wrong, but I think once you do more of that, your community is just there supporting you. It's just a lot easier to really be yourself.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, that's going to be the easiest way to go. I mean, not the easiest, the best way. Honesty is the best policy. It always is. I
Yeah.
I, I love that. So we are, like I said, I thought it would happen. We got cut off on Instagram. It ended um, at
They
9.
know. They
Yeah,
know.
they know. They yeah. They well, it happened like that before. It's the weirdest thing, but um, there were a couple comments. A bunch of people came through. I truly enjoy. Oh shit! I should have thanked you before we
No,
got
that's
to.
okay.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you coming on. There's so many good things. I really do love seeing everything that you're doing. I love the van build idea. I can't wait. Honestly, I cannot wait to see it come together.
I appreciate that. I'm excited. I'm excited to share the content. It's edited. It's almost ready to roll. I'm literally just waiting to get my van back this week before, because I kind of want to put two videos up in a row. I don't want to just like throw one random one up and then never talk about it again. Um, so I'm just waiting to get that back, and then I think probably in the next month or so, I would say probably next month, I'm gonna start posting those videos. So I'm really excited about it.
I the toilet, the whole thing, the toilet,
The
that
toilet thing is so weird, but it's kind of genius.
I mean it, and you have to have that because you're gonna be somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah. And I'm not gonna have plumbing like running to, I'm not gonna have like a black water tank for, no, I'd rather just have this thing that vacuum seals it. Like,
that's yeah. You take it, you just put it in the trash, right?
that's
That's all
basically
you
it.
do.
Like, it's bio, it's like the foil it's in is like you're allowed to throw it out. Like, it's
That's so crazy.
so weird. We live in the
You're,
future.
you're gonna you're gonna pull up behind some restaurant and go, "I'll just dump it in there."
Just dump it. I'm sorry.
That's funny.
Uh,
That's funny. Well, either way, not either way. I don't know what that meant, but I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the time you gave me.
no, this was nice.
It's fun. I love doing these because it gives me a chance to, like, you and I have talked many times, but this is the first time where we have had no interruptions. Like,
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
you don't have, well, except at the airport. That was a very uh that one time, the
Our
first time
first hangout was at an airport. That's right.
yeah, yeah, waiting for the planes, and you don't get that often. So this to me is fun to do with people and get a chance to just talk and see all the cool things, and it's the origin. I think there's so much in the origin story that people can learn from.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think like, I don't know, I like hearing other people's origin stories too, because we all start differently and in different places and with different backgrounds. And I think it's just so inspiring and it's nice. It's just nice to hear everybody's story.
One of the cool things I've heard time and again is the number of people who have started their business because an opportunity arose where they said, I have to take this, or, my business doesn't go anywhere,
Yep.
you know? And it's surprising to me how many people looked at that opportunity and said, I'm going to jump on this. And then I think about the number of times when people have had opportunities jump at them and they said, no, I'm going to let that go by. And, it's that dichotomy of choice and how that one choice affects and changes everything.
Absolutely. That one choice to make Chris's support local music sign in Montauk changed the trajectory of so many things for me, right? Like, it's just crazy how that one thing, like that one thing you do, could just be the thing that just changes so much for you for the better.
You know what? I think for me, oh my God, there's so much stuff. I think for me, one of the big things was Ethan calling me, messaging me. Ethan got me to We See and See that when they were, and that's what started my jigs.
I love
And that,
it.
oh, that by itself, the jigs and everything changed the trajectory of my channel and what I was doing and what I realized people wanted to see. So
So you just
it's just,
never know.
no, you don't. I appreciate you. Enjoy the beautiful weather. I can't wait to see the videos. Thank you.
Thank you. This is fun.
So I'm going to hit the end stream button. Hold on a second.